I want to tidy up a few loose ends concerning the constitutionality of the FCPA as mentioned in my previous two videos. I'll start with a reading from usconstitution.net on the subject of constitutional interpretation. The Constitution is many things to many people. Undoubtedly, it is the framework for the government of the United States of America, defining the three branches and clearly delineating powers of the branches. It also undoubtedly grants certain powers to the federal government and grants others to the states, and it undoubtedly guarantees the basic rights of the people. The Constitution is short. It cannot and does not attempt to cover every eventuality. Even when it seems it is clear, there can be conflicting rights, conflicting spheres of power. When disputes arise, it comes time for people, and more importantly judges of the judicial branch, to interpret the Constitution. The concept of constitutional interpretation is foreign in some countries, where their constitution makes a reasonable effort to cover every eventuality. There is no one right way to interpret the Constitution, and people often do not always stick to one interpretation. It is my conclusion that Mr. Killian is a literalist. He is likely to be an historical literalist with a bias towards originalism when it suits him, such as when trying to argue that Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10 doesn't give the FCPA powers to enforce laws governing out-of-country conduct. Notwithstanding the fact that he is wrong to claim that the FCPA crosses jurisdictional barriers, and really investigating News Corp for the actions of a subsidiary company over which it has the responsibility to ensure are acting in accordance with both the host and the home nation's laws is not a breach of jurisdictional powers, nor is it too much to ask that said parent company actually behave in an ethical manner and take full responsibility for the actions of a subsidiary company it created in the first place. He is also wrong to have such an absurdly literal interpretation of a document that was written at a time long before international commerce became what it is today. There have been, and continues to be, cases in which the Constitution has to be interpreted, and not even the justices agree on which is the right interpretation all of the time, as can be seen in the links provided in the info bar concerning the cases of Wickard Vs Filburn and Gonzalez vs Raich, where the Commerce Clause was up for interpretation in both cases. While we're on the subject of literalism, the doctrine of absurdity applies here. The doctrine of absurdity refers to any strict interpretation of something to the point of violating common sense, e.g., following religious dictates, emphasizing or observing the something's exact rules or words but not its spirit. The absurdity doctrine, also known as the Scrivener's error exception, is a legal theory under which American courts have interpreted statutes contrary to their plain meaning in order to avoid absurd legal conclusions. It is contrasted with the common sense of man approves the judgment mentioned by Puffenstuff that the Bolognian law, which enacted that whoever drew blood in the streets should be punished with the utmost severity, did not extend to the surgeon who opened the vein of a person that fell down in a street in a fit. The same common sense accepts the ruling cited by Plowden that the statute of 1st Edward II, which enacts that a prisoner who breaks prison shall be guilty of a felony, does not extend to a prisoner who breaks out when the prison is on fire, for he is not to be hanged because he would not stay to be burnt. Mr. Killian has this problem. He would take a literal interpretation of practically everything that is written, often ignoring the spirit that it is meant in. This allows him to get away with outrageous claims against his critics, such as accusing them of being deliberately deceptive, when in actual fact, few of them have been. It also allows him the excuse to ban someone for homophobia on the basis of that person accusing him and his cohorts of a circle jerk. The Urban Dictionary cites an alternative description as a useless discussion or meeting involving mental masturbation whereby the egotistical, boring participants try to demonstrate they are the smartest persons in the room. Rather than go and look it up just in case he might be wrong, he jumps to a hasty conclusion that I'm being homophobic, and uses it as an excuse. It is my belief that he has done so deliberately, which provides more evidence of his flagrant dishonesty. Far from being open-minded and rational, Mr. Killian demonstrates in this action alone, much less any of his other actions, that he is nothing of the kind. I have the following accounts that I used from time to time. I freely admit that I've used these to circumvent what I consider to be an unjust blocking so that I can make my points known, especially when it came to collecting evidence of dishonesty, such as in this case here. I have no other accounts, and these accounts have been in existence for some time. I mention this because Mr. Killian is under the impression that I'm still commenting on his videos under other stock accounts. Newsflash, Mr. Killian. Mr. Jim is not me. Knight Templar 108 is not me. Looking up Urban Dictionary to correct your misinformation about circle jerk being exclusively a homophobic insult doesn't take too much effort, but apparently is beyond an individual like Mr. Killian. I have no problem with homosexuality, and I never will, so I get angry when people accuse me of that kind of disgusting bigotry. Others have accused him of being hypocritical on a great many subjects, and I can certainly understand why. He is a hypocrite. Condemning a bunch of senators for breach of justice, due process and jurisdiction while accusing them, without evidence, of engaging in a witch hunt is hypocrisy. It is also hypocrisy to accept support from a church or religious organization or religious people, even going as far as to thank them online for their support and for their prayers, and then claim that you are blessed, while attacking creationists, who are in a sense the same literalist mindset as this guy. Now, am I being too literal here? Perhaps I am, and perhaps I'm not. However, the accusation that I've taken this statement too literally, if it were to come from any of Mr. Killian's supporters, will be another instance of hypocrisy, because this is precisely what they do with anything they disagree with. They do it in order to try to poke holes in other people's arguments. And as a side note to Virgil0211, don't ever try to pull on my heartstrings again. The circumstances behind this hypocrisy does not change the fact that it is hypocrisy. End of discussion. Mr. Killian is also a hypocrite in that he has demanded a high standard of evidence from his critics while figuratively screaming and cussing at them if they ask the same in return. Even clarification from someone who might otherwise agree with him results in a screaming hissy fit and possibly a blocking. He is also a hypocrite in expecting people to stick to a single topic while hopping all over the place himself, as a great many of his videos and their comment sections are evidence of. And finally, he is a hypocrite when he and his cohorts chide others for deleting comments, going as far as to claim that their critics delete comments and citing that as a reason not to go watch their videos, when he has done exactly the same thing himself and even admitted it. And such hypocrisy is a good enough reason to put him permanently on my ban list. As of this point, he will never again be allowed to comment on this or any of my other channels. I've no doubt he will make plenty of videos attacking my character as well as trying to counter my arguments in the same fashion as he always does, with his literalist, non-interpretive mindset, unable to see the nuances or get out of the 18th century. But that's the nature of freedom of speech. Sometimes people are going to say things you don't agree with. He can do it on his own channel. Mine is now off limits to him and his particular brand of hypocrisy. As has been quoted many times before, never try to argue with an idiot. He'll drag you down to his level and beat you with experience. And Mr. Killian is the very thing he accuses other people of being, an idiot extraordinaire.